The issue of the San Diego sewage waiver is really quite simple. The people that treat the sewage treatment plants, generally don't want to treat it to the full extent that they have to. So want to treat it to as low a degree of cleanliness as they can to save money. The end result of about 30 years of controversy about cleaning the sewage was the Clean Water Act in 1972. All the confusion and all the obfuscation about percentage increases and proving that the ocean is not harmed by the water was eliminated by the Clean Water Act's 30/30 standard, which sets certain what's called secondary treatment standards for cleanliness of the ocean. Doesn't matter how you get there, it's 30 total suspended solids and 30 biological oxygen demand. And that's the way that's the way every treatment plant should work. The waiver was established in 1976 when a number of treatment plants led by San Diego decided that they didn't really want to comply with the Clean Water Act. So there was legislation passed which said that if you were a small coastal community, didn't harm the ocean, and could prove you didn't harm the ocean, and you didn't have to treat the sewage to the secondary standards, you could get what's called a 301H waiver. And that's what San Diego is now applying for, its 301H waiver. And you'll begin to see how they confuse things with percentage increases and changing the subject to the California Ocean Plan and anything else they can do to confuse the issue.
I'd like to give those present here not so familiar with the topic a bit of background on basic wastewater treatment and Clean Water Act requirements. Sorry. Thanks very much. The primary treatment of domestic wastewater involves two basic stages, commonly called primary treatment and secondary treatment.
Now, wait a minute. She says the primary treatment of domestic wastewater is two steps: primary treatment and secondary treatment.
Primary treatment involves physical processes like screening, settling, and skimming, while secondary treatment involves biological processes which break down particles suspended in the wastewater. At each stage of treatment, the wastewater becomes cleaner.
And once again, she's talking about primary treatment and secondary treatment, but the Clean Water Act talks about secondary standards. The secondary treatment is generally considered to be biological treatment with activated sludge, but it doesn't have to be. She cleverly changes the subject there.
Achieve both primary treatment, 30% removal, BOD and TSS, and California Ocean Plan treatment standards for TSS of 75% removal. Under the Clean Water Act, Section 301J5, the city must also...
Now you see how they begin to confuse things. Percentage reductions under the Clean Water Act, Section J5. It isn't complicated. Is the question, are you going to treat the sewage to secondary standards, the 30/30 standard, yes or no? The answer, they don't want to do it.
Monitored monthly. Our review of the past 5 years of effluent data indicates that toxics concentration in effluent and whole effluent toxicity levels are low relative to Ocean Plan standards for both aquatic life and human health after critical initial dilution, and that state standards are being achieved. In the context of effluent toxics, we also determined that the city has an adequate toxics control program for industrial and non-industrial discharges into their collection system, which meets the 301H criteria. Before I explain to you the results of our receiving water assessment, I wanted to orient you a bit to the monitoring area off Point Loma. Versions of this map will appear throughout my presentation. This map shows the location of the current outfall, which extends 3.9 nautical.
Wait a minute. A study of the effluent for the past 5 years. I mean, do we really want to study sewage discharges for 5 years? And look at that complicated map. All those testing stations are paid for. They could avoid all that if they just treated the sewage to the level that's required by the Clean Water Act and realize that San Diego is now a huge community and needs to treat the sewage like everybody else.
I gave this presentation a year and a half ago to the San Diego City Council, trying to put things in perspective, trying to show in a scale diagram, 1 inch per 100 feet roughly, what we're talking about, what we're looking at.
This is the famous Orange County bathtub diagram, where they're trying to show that the water is so far out there where they dump the sewage, and it's so shallow that the sewage can never come up this steep bathtub back to the shore. But it doesn't even matter if it doesn't come back to the shore because it infests the sea creatures. But it does come back to the shore, which is easily tested. None of these people that are applying for the waiver dare to put an organic dye into the sewage, which would prove that the beach would turn purple. They haven't ever done that because they're afraid that if they do, nobody will go to the beach because they'll see that all this sewage is coming back to shore.